Okay, it looks like we are live. My name is Mandy, and I am with COVID Recovery Iowa, and I have with me today Jeff Zogg, and I don't want to mess up your title, so because Senior Service Hydrologist, but you're a weatherman to me, so we appreciate your expertise here today, Jeff, and we're going to be talking about weather trends and specifically the derecho. COVID Recovery Iowa is a FEMA funded grant that we've been working with for a couple of years at Pathways Behavioral Services, providing that extra emotional support that people oftentimes need in the event of a disaster. And one of the areas that we've been trying to help people cope with and recover from and emotionally make their way through the process of the derecho. So because the derecho, I'd never heard of it before. Jeff tells me that my pronunciation of it is okay. But we'd also talked about there being other versions of that, but the derecho works for him. So if it works for him, it works for me. I had never heard of one before. They did exist before it hit Iowa here. It ran pretty severely, we talked about, through the Cedar Rapids area, but there were a lot of counties that were impacted, including Jeff was talking about his own home. I'm just far enough north of it. We were kind of on the northern edge of it. So, but Jeff had firsthand experience with the derecho. So tell us, Jeff, are we gonna see more derechos in our future? Why did we see one in the first place?
Sure, Mandy. Well, derechos have been around probably forever. They've happened a lot. During the summer months, they typically happen across the northern United States. They typically happen in proximity to the jet stream, where you have the clash of the air masses. So during the summer months, the jet stream tends to move north. And so they tend to affect our northern states, like the northern Dakotas and Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Michigan, and even southern Canada for that matter. And the thing is they happen up there. There's not a lot of people up there. There's a lot of forest up there. So you don't hear a lot about them because, I mean, they can blow down a lot of trees, but they don't tend to affect populated areas to the extent that the one that affected, Iowa and surrounding states did. And it was just a classic case of the ingredients coming together just in the right mix to produce this derecho that we saw here in Iowa. It actually started in South Dakota the night before as a thunderstorm complex. And then as it moved through the Sioux City area into northwest Iowa, it eventually evolved into what we call a derecho, moved across Iowa, and as you said, affected the Cedar Rapids area. I live here in the Des Moines area, affected my house, affected my family too. And it continued pushing east and eventually made it to lower Michigan and Ohio before eventually dying out. So it was a very long track storm system. It lasted longer than most derechos do. It affected people, a lot more people than most derechos do because of where it was and just the extent of it, and produced very, very strong winds. Derechos are known to produce strong winds, but this one produced very strong winds even for a derecho. So it was probably the strongest derecho ever recorded in the United States. And, it affected us here in Iowa. So, yeah.
Do you think we'll see more of that kind of weather? Are we seeing, in general, are we seeing more unstable or more severe, maybe is the better word, weather happening?
We're seeing more extremes with the weather as time goes on. I've noticed that personally, especially in this part of the country, it seems like, but other parts of the country too. I mean, you hear in the news about, tornadoes, more tornadoes occurring in the South now during the winter, for example. So I think we're seeing some more extremes with the weather. Maybe also part of it is social media and the news media. When something happens, it's easier to know about it than maybe it was in the past. But I think the weather is just becoming more active too. So that's definitely one thing to keep in mind, that I think the weather is definitely becoming more active.
So you mentioned that the day of the derecho that you were doing your job over the internet. Is that the best way to say that?
Right.
And you were called in to in-person work that morning. because whoever was in the office knew something severe was coming. So that makes me think about preparedness. I feel like you mentioned about yourself and changing in your position as far as having the strong desire to keep people safe in the event of disaster. So what can we do as parents? This is the Parenting in a Pandemic group, to be more prepared in the future.
Probably the best thing to do as far as the weather is to, stay informed on the latest weather forecast and threats. The National Weather Service, we do have a website at weather.gov. And if people haven't gone there, I encourage people to go there. We have a map, if you go to our main page, showing the United States and the current watches, warnings, and advisories. You can click on your location of interest and you can go to the local office that serves your area. Here in the central Iowa area, we're served by the Des Moines office. Iowa is actually served by 5 different weather service offices besides Des Moines. In the northwest part of the state, you have Sioux Falls. Southwest, you have Omaha, Nebraska. Northeast part, La Crosse, Wisconsin. And east central and southeast, you have the Quad Cities office in Davenport. And what people can do is they can go to those web pages for the particular offices. The upper left-hand corner, you can put in your zip code or your city and state, and you'll get a customized 7-day forecast for your location. It includes links to any kind of watches, warnings, advisories that are in effect, hazardous weather outlooks, that sort of thing. And you can bookmark that page and, maybe make it part of your daily routine that you check the forecast when you get up. Of course, our partners in the news media, they're good about sharing information about hazardous weather that's coming too, but you can get it straight from us as well. Weather radios are also a good thing to have if people don't have them. We sometimes call it the smoke detector of severe weather, because if we issue like a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning and that sort of thing, we can tone alert. It'll activate a siren or some kind of emergency tone on the weather radio to let you know something's going on, and you can listen to the weather broadcast. And we program we do the programming for those weather radios. They come straight from the Weather Service offices, and that's another good way to stay informed, because when the weather is normal, we put the 7-day forecast on there. If there's hazards, we'll talk about that. The weather gets active, we broadcast the warnings on there too. So that's another good thing to have is a weather radio to stay informed.
And weather.gov, I can put that in our comments when we're done here, but weather.gov, and you put in your zip code, it sounds like, right? And you can get a 7-day forecast and a weather radio.
Yes.
Got it. Both sound like good things. And it seems, I'm thinking about mental health right now too, and the combination between, having that daily ability to check in, but also not being overly worried about it. When the wind blows, I understand that people who had some pretty severe impact from the derecho, they get pretty nervous, kids and adults too. So that weather radio might be reassurance that it's not going to be a day of severe weather, it sounds like, but also to be prepared if there is some. I like it. That's good. Thank you. Weather.gov, and put in your zip code and a weather radio. Did you have something else you wanted to add there? I think I interrupted.
No, that's it. Well, besides the zip code, you can put in your city and state too, whatever you prefer. So, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll take that moment to see if there's any questions or comments. Please put anything in there if you want me to ask Jeff. How about predictability? Like what's going on in the weather office that you work in? Is there new advances, and is it becoming easier to predict or harder, or kind of tools that we have?
There's definitely advances going on in terms of predicting severe weather. We have a lot more tools at our disposal. Where I work at the office in Des Moines, we're considered operational meteorology, so we're applying the tools to forecasting the weather and warning people of the hazards. And of course, there's researchers out there that are doing research into ways to better predict other kinds of severe weather. So, there's all kinds of things going on at the same time. There's the research going on, there's implementation of the research to try to better predict the weather. And we definitely have a lot more tools at our disposal to predict weather than we had even a few years ago. And like anything, that continues changing. However, weather can sometimes be unpredictable or very challenging to predict. So sometimes it's hard to predict an extreme weather event in advance. There might be signals that we are going to have some kind of adverse weather, but sometimes, like with the derecho, it was difficult to predict something of that magnitude that far in advance. We knew there was thunderstorms expected, but it wasn't until that morning that we started getting a clear picture that this was not going to be an ordinary thunderstorm day. So while things continue advancing, we still have a lot to learn. Being in the science of weather and water, hydrology, can be very humbling at times, because it's like a lot of things. Sometimes the more that you start to realize the more you realize you don't know. And we continue learning more and more about the weather as time goes on. This derecho event, it's being studied pretty extensively by researchers, and some of those researchers, including the Weather Service, they study it because if the forecast didn't go that well, or we didn't provide the amount of lead time that we wanted to provide to people, we want to study that event and see, okay, what can we do better next time? What tools can we use, or could we have done better? Maybe we couldn't have, but what can we learn from it to do better next time? That's bottom line. That's what we want to do.
I think that should be reassuring to a lot of us, just that everybody's working so hard at trying to make it more and more timely so that people can be prepared. You mentioned that the derecho, I don't know if I'm going to word it quite right, but you said one of the most interesting phenomenon that you ever have experienced weather-wise I don't know how long you've been in the position you've been in, but maybe your whole life, maybe it's the most interesting.
Yeah, I've basically, my entire career has been in the Weather Service, and it's definitely one of the most interesting weather phenomena I've seen. Just how dynamic it was, how big it was, how impactful it was, how quickly it ramped up. That's that sort of thing. It was amazing to watch it. Also humbling and also scary at the same time. There were those of us in the office here in Des Moines. We were. There were times we were scared like everyone else. I mean, we're human beings like everyone else, and also sadness too. To see and know that as this thing's marching across Iowa, the amount of damage that it's doing. Mm-hmm. But at the time, we have to focus, and our mission is protection of lives and property. So we got to focus on that, try to stay ahead of things, and do that. But yeah, it was a very interesting and humbling event.
We can even grieve the loss of a tree, the loss of the landscape, and that familiarity. So I
Right.
know there were a lot of trees that were lost all across its path. You mentioned tornadoes were involved in that, and I did not know that. You said they were smaller, but just the I don't know, the magnitude of that storm and the fact that it involved tornadoes I thought was kind of mind blowing. So.
Yeah, between here and Cedar Rapids, especially between Des Moines and Cedar Rapids, it produced some tornadoes, relatively weak tornadoes, but they helped to enhance the damage that was already going on with the derecho. I mean, obviously the winds from the derecho were causing a lot of damage, and those places that got hit by these so-called weak tornadoes had even more extensive damage.
Well, I appreciate your insight. I'll give one more shout out in case anybody has any questions or comments, but I appreciate your insight and just humanizing the whole predictability or unpredictability of weather is appreciated. So thank you for your time today. I'll make sure and put those links in there. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, Mandy, thanks for having me. I just encourage people to, again, stay weather aware. That's, I think, the best defense that we can have. Mentioned the website, weather.gov, Weather Radio, again, our news media partners. I mean, we consider them partners. They help us get the word out too, just to stay weather aware, what the threats are and what you can do to prepare for them.
The CDC has some good ideas on disaster preparedness for parents and children. So we can put some links in there about that too. And again, if you need any emotional support, spring is upon us, my favorite time of year, but I know comes with some stormy days too. So reach out if you need some counseling support. Our hotline number, one of them is 1-800-447-1985. So people can reach us in that way. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Mandy.